I'm a clinical psychologist. I specialise in ADHD and autism in particular.
You was a pivotal moment of my life.
Being able to make a meaningful difference is the main driver for doing the job, really. It's what, I don't know, if someone gives me some sort of feedback about how they found the experience, and, you know, people do say to me sometimes, like, this has been life-changing. Someone said that to me the other day about their partner, and I was just so touched by it, and it's just the biggest reminder of why I do what I do.
Yeah. No, I agree. Certain jobs like that, and it's like what I'm doing with Line My Next now. We're developing people in whatever way, shape or form, and I love that because it's whatever you deem to be development, let's do it.
When I was about 14, 15, my cousin unfortunately died. He took his own life and he was in his 20s. I'll never forget trying to understand why. Even then, about 14, I remember some people's sort of narratives being like, how selfish, like how could someone do that to his family, and I felt really strongly then that people were kind of missing the point. And actually my feelings were, how bad must things have felt
for him to have to do that?
Seemed to be the only option that he had available to him, and actually that is just devastating, because what's that saying about how he was feeling, what was going on inside his mind? That amongst other things is probably why I feel like I'm probably a very curious person. Like my friends always laugh at me because I'm always asking questions. I always want to know why, and I always want to know how people are feeling about things. And people joke because obviously psychologists, they say, you always say, and how does that make you feel? But I genuinely want to know.
So I just want to stop you just for one moment here. Now, I want to thank you, first of all, for the growth of the podcast. It's been absolutely amazing. It really, really has. And it means a lot for you guys to comment, to share, and to, support the show, because these guys really pour their heart out, obviously, as you know. And it's something I want to help push out to people so that everybody understands that no matter who you are, where you are, what you've done, there's always weak periods in your life, but there's always strong periods as well. And talking about strong periods, I want to give you a freebie as a thank you. Go to the link on YouTube where you'll find it in the description. If you're on Spotify or Apple, you'll notice it's on Apple, but on Spotify it isn't. So there you can go to my Instagram, DMaidenOfficial, and you'll find it on my bio there. But go to this and make sure you put this and implement it into your life. It will change the way you see everything. This really has re-energized myself. If you're like me and you work really hard and you don't know when your down periods are, and you think, I will sort them soon, I will plan something at some point, and they don't happen, this will change your life, because this is a full year plan of planning your yearly breaks. And the way that I've sort of like broke it down and everything, it is going to help you and change your life so that it re-energizes you, and it also keeps you focused on track when you're working to know exactly when your dates are that you're having down periods. Other than that, get yourself into this podcast. Okay, so Dr. Emily Compton-Smith.
Hi.
It's quite a tongue twister, isn't it?
I know, it's long. I have to always spell it out.
Have you got a middle name as well?
Yeah, I do.
What? Come on,
Claire.
tell us. Claire. So Dr. Emily Claire Compton-Smith.
So you can't even say it.
How fast can you say it?
Dr. Emily Compton-Smith.
You
No, wait, I missed my middle name. Dr. Emily Claire Compton-Smith. I don't think I've ever said that.
You wouldn't say that, would
no.
you? But no, welcome to the Line Mind. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
We were just saying before, obviously, today could go many, many ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'd say you're probably a special person in my life without you knowing.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Well, you was a pivotal moment of my life.
Yeah.
And I won't forget it.
Oh.
And I won't let you forget it either.
No, I won't forget you either.
I don't want to be just one of many.
Absolutely.
But cool. So just tell us very briefly, and then we'll do the show gift.
Okay. Yeah.
We need to remember that. That was a point to remember. But yeah, just tell us very, very briefly before we go into the depth and stuff. Like, who are you and why do we need to know you?
Okay, so I am Emily, Dr. Emily, as you said.
Yeah.
I'm a clinical psychologist, and I specialise in ADHD and autism in particular.
Yeah.
So I guess I am just very passionate about helping people to make sense of themselves, and I think that's why I'm in the area that I'm in. That's at the fundamental kind of core of what I do. It's just helping people to sort of get a better understanding of who they are, why they do what they do, and sometimes why they've struggled in the ways that they have, and just helping people to sort of empower themselves, kind of validate their experiences, and I love it really. It's a very privileged position to be in.
No, I bet, yeah. And how long have you done that for, like, now?
So I've specialised in ADHD and autism for a few years now. It's a bit of a long journey into clinical psychology, so it takes, I'd say, a minimum of about 8 years to actually qualify. But ADHD and autism is something that I sort of started doing whilst I was training. So I qualified in, where are we now? 2022 or 2021. I've been qualified for about 2.5 years, however long that makes it. But yeah, sort of in the sort of mental health field for a lot longer than that.
Yeah, good, nice. Well, before I forget, let's do the show gift, and then
okay, I'm hoping that this is going to make sense to you.
Well, we will find out. I can't read, so
okay, no pressure.
No, I don't have a short attention span. I just look, a squirrel. That is actually funny. We obviously it's a general thing you just say, isn't it? Squirrel.
Exactly.
I literally said it yesterday as well to someone. What was it on about? I can't remember now, but the other day, and they didn't know what I meant.
Okay.
And then I had to explain it because I was like, "Now I just look like an idiot."
Yeah. I feel like I hear it all the time. Maybe it's just my world, but it's definitely.
Do you know what's like insanely hilarious as well? It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think it's one of those things where when you go, when you do see a squirrel. So I always have this thing in my head, and because now I know it's now a thing as well, it makes it even worse. But I always go, wonder where he's going, wonder where he's been, what's he doing?
What's his
is he getting his food, or has he had his food? You know what I mean? And then you go, why does it fucking matter?
Yeah. And then like 10 minutes later, what was I doing? Yeah.
Talking about forgetting things, I forgot to press the timer, so we'll whack that on as well.
Oh no.
But no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
That's okay.
I'll swap over now. I appreciate it. Cool. So let's get back to, sort of like your story and everything. It'd be really interesting. I mean, today I want to give a lot of value to people that are listening. We get insane feedback, and it was only yesterday we listened to a voice note this morning, didn't we, of someone that messaged again with amazing feedback. And I love it because I think sometimes I even forget the impact that we can make on people by just chatting.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing where, like, bringing people like you on, I mean it when I say it was a pivotal moment of my life, and you will have for so many other people's, good and bad. Let's be honest, because it's the way it goes.
Definitely.
But it's where you get people to that point where you go, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's talk a little bit about your backstory as well, because what actually got you here, and in the position you are now. What's your what was it like for you as growing up as a young non-doctor Emily?
Just Emily. It was good. I think
local to here, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. So I grew up in Leicester or Leicestershire, except for a few years when I moved to Australia with my family. So I would say on the whole, very happy childhood. Very lucky in that respect, but obviously everyone has their challenges, don't they? So I moved to Australia with my mum, my dad, and my younger brother when I was 10 for 3 years. Yeah. And looking back now, it's really cool, that we got that experience, and I have an Australian passport, so I'm like an Australian citizen as well.
Would you keep that forever?
You do. It expires. So I say I have one. It is currently expired, but if I want to renew it at any point, I can.
Oh, really?
So,
I've never looked into Australia.
Yeah,
so
you have to live there for a certain amount of years and become a citizen and all sorts of stuff. But so we've all got them now, and that's a nice thing to have. But like, of course, moving to the other side of the world is, it's no mean feat, and I think doing that as a child when I don't know, it's massive. And for all the good experiences that I can now look back and like be really grateful for, which I am, it was hard. And, I remember just crying on the plane because, I was leaving everyone I knew behind and not knowing when I was going to see them again. Yeah.
Isn't it funny because you weren't leaving the most important people?
No, absolutely not.
But as a child, you're built around your surroundings, aren't you? It's like my school, my
it's everything
friends,
yeah.
doing the things that you do, like whether you went to a certain park or whatever, it's like all that's gone. And as a child, it's hard to understand that, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is, And although, I'm very lucky that I was very close to my parents and my brother, this is a credit to them. I was also really close to my wider family. You know, we were always extremely close to like all of our grandparents and our aunties, uncles, cousins. Yeah. And we went to a really nice school where, you know, like you're really part of the community. So, you know, and that is because, you know, that's a real testament to my mum and dad. But so whilst I was with my closest and sort of, you know, most influential and sort of best people in my life, I was also without a lot of other special people.
No, I get it, yeah. Why did you move then? What was the reason?
So the main reason was that my mum and dad thought that it might provide a better quality of life. So it was all for sort of positive reasons. It wasn't they had a specific job that sort of took them there. And in fact, it was actually really hard at first because my mum, you know, Australia has like a jobs list of jobs that they want, sort of skills.
Yeah, I get that.
And my mum's on that because she's a mental health nurse, so she got a job straight away, and that was really easy. But my dad works in sort of finance, banking, and it was much harder for him to get a job in the first place. So when he got a job, it was probably, he would say, the best job he's ever had. But it was, you know, an anxiety-provoking time for them because they uprooted us and, you know, made a massive decision, and then, you know, it was like, oh, we now have to make that work and, you know, make a living and, you know, make sure that we're able to, you know, actually be here and live here. So
and prove to you lot that it was a good move.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and that was hard because it was a new place, it was new people, it was new schools, it was new jobs for my mum and dad. Like everything really changed, you know. And although we were obviously lucky to have technology, everyone was like 12, 11 hours, you know, apart. So it was hard.
So it was hard to
manage that. Make that work. Yeah.
Were your parents going through something for this to have happened?
For it to have happened?
Or do you not know? Or...
No, I don't think so. Not for it to have happened. So I think they first had the idea a long time before we actually went, because they first went to Australia when I was 1. I'm smiling because I still mock them for this now, because they left me with my grandparents, and even as a 1-year-old, I think like it says a lot about me, because apparently I would just lie there on the sofa with my eyes closed and hold my hand out and just demand my milk, because I was basically really not very happy with them that they'd left me.
Wow.
Even though I was in very safe hands with people I really loved. So I still like to, you know, wind them up about that. How could you do that to me? So it was on their mind for a long time. And then my dad went a couple of years before we left. He went again to a different part of Australia, and for whatever reason that wasn't right. And then we finally went. So it was. I guess
they were testing the water in a way,
for a long time. So it was the third. So we went to Melbourne, but they'd been to Perth and Sydney, so completely different places before that to arrive at. Melbourne. But when we went, we'd never been before. None of us had. So big change. But
Sarah's got a mate who, I don't want to say the wrong place, but she's Australia somewhere. I can't think where now. But she's it's crazy to think though, because she's been there years now.
Yeah.
And she loves it. Loads of people move out there, don't they?
They do, yeah. It's really popular.
But it's crazy, isn't it, that your mum and dad did that? Obviously, that just must have been a burning desire in their head. Because if they didn't have a reason, and like you say, it wasn't a work reason.
No, yeah.
It was just literally, we're going to do it.
Yeah, and I don't know where the idea originally came from. I'm not sure what sort of sparked that, you know, in the first place. But it seemed like it was going to happen. You know, they went 3 times.
No, of course.
Yeah, and they were very committed.
So why, like, obviously you would have struggled as, you know, being young, because you can't get your head around it. But can you remember feeling like you were struggling? Do you know what I mean? Does that trauma you in a way? Does it stick in your head?
Yeah, I think I just remember. And I don't mean this as a criticism, because, you know, my parents are very good and they, you know, they did what they thought was best for us. But I guess it wasn't anything I could control. You know, I was.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it was sort of done to us in a way. And, you know, I've got a child now, and obviously I'll make decisions in his best interest, you know, without asking him. Yeah. So I get that completely.
Yeah.
But I guess, so I was 10, and that is very young. But I feel like I was just old enough to sort of know my own mind a little bit and know what I wanted. And I've always been very strong-minded. I think everyone would say that. So I think even then I felt like strongly that I knew what I wanted and what I thought was best for me.
Wasn't quite right.
Yeah. So I think my parents will probably agree that the whole time I was there, they knew that I kind of, in my head, I got through it by knowing that it was going to be temporary, because that's how they sort of, I guess, sold it to us. They said, you know, we're going to go for a couple of years and just see how it is. But I very much sort of like latched onto that. And I was
Yeah,
sort of
cool.
like,
Well, you're going to,
we're
aren't you?
going to
Though,
come back.
especially,
You know,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is time limited, and at the end we're going home. So
Yeah.
I don't think I ever let go of that, really.
It's mad to think that as a 10-year-old, though.
I
Like,
know.
looking back anyway.
I know. And now I look at sort of children that age, and I'm like, how, you know.
Yeah. Why? How would you have thought?
Yeah.
That?
Why did I think that? How did I
It shows it's a natural thing, isn't it? Like the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's good to see the finish line sometimes, although it's still a long way away.
Yeah. And that helped me get through, definitely. I say get through, like it was still a great experience.
No, of course,
you know,
but
it came with its challenges.
Yeah. So how long did you stay there for then?
For 3 years. Yeah.
3 years, and then what? So you were 13, 14 when you come back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think just before my 14th.
So then, did you go back to the same area and just resume life?
Yeah. So we came. So we
Just
didn't sell our house.
3 years older.
So it was really strange actually, because I went back into the same school, but when we moved, I'd started secondary school for 3 weeks.
Oh,
so
right.
very briefly. And in that time, they'd knocked the school down, they'd rebuilt it. Gartree, maybe, yeah.
In Oadby.
Yeah. So, and I'd been to. So most of my friends from primary school had moved there, and you know, there was friends that I'd left in the place I lived, and but it was really strange because 3 years is a long time, and it's a really long time when you're a teenager.
Yeah, gotcha.
So all of like the pop culture, like, you know, all the references, I had no idea what people were on about. Like, I'd never seen X Factor, I'd never even heard of X Factor.
Oh, really?
And that was really big at the time. And you know,
now it's in Australia, isn't it?
I think it is. Yeah.
Sure.
But at the time, I didn't know what it was.
No,
like, the music was different. Like what people were watching, what people were talking about, the slang, everything was different. And then, you know, I was just like,
did you have a bit of an Australian twang to you?
Yeah. So when I lived there, I got to a point where people didn't know I wasn't Australian. I think as children, you pick up the accent a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Although my brother had a very strange, like, we still laugh about this because he had a American, Australian, English amalgamation, and it was very strange. But I think I did pick up the accent quite naturally. So then obviously when I came back, everyone was like, just speak, say something. I want to hear you talk. And obviously as a teenager, that's the most embarrassing thing ever.
Of course it is. Like,
so,
I'm not speaking now.
Yeah,
You said
so now
that,
I'm not talking, So I managed to lose it again very quickly. Because I just didn't want the attention, basically. Yeah.
So then getting back to school and all that sort of stuff, was it simple enough? Like, as in...
No, it was definitely an adjustment. And Australia has a completely different education system. And what I think I found difficult was not necessarily getting on with the work. You know, I was like fairly capable at school. But I came back for year 9, and then I went to like college from year 10 onwards. And for all our GCSEs, everyone had these predicted grades based on how they'd done in sort of like middle school. And I didn't have that because I hadn't really been there. So no one knew, like, no one had any expectations of me. And that, I guess that's good and bad, but you know, sometimes I wanted to be pushed, and I was just sort of like whacked in the middle for everything because people just didn't know where to put me. And so I kind of felt like I was just sort of like floating through, not being, you know, necessarily recognizing what areas I probably needed more support with, but equally not recognizing the areas that I was sort of excelling at and needed to be, you know, pushed further. And that used to frustrate me quite a lot because I thought, you know, is there not a way of making, you know, yes, I've missed some of that sort of UK system, but is there not a way of just treating me as an individual and finding out that information about me? And I guess now as a psychologist, I know that is a possibility.
Of course it is.
But it wasn't done. So that was, you know, frustrating at the time. And even in Australia, the education system was quite different. So, for example, they learnt Italian at school, whereas, you know, so
is that just a normal, genuine subject?
Yeah. No, so like, you know, instead of French.
Oh, got you. Sorry. Right. Yeah.
But I'd not ever done any Italian. So all of a sudden I was thrown into like Italian lessons.
Can you speak Italian now?
No. No, I cannot. I could probably count maybe. But yeah, and then the same when I got back to French, and I hadn't done that, you know. So it was, really, there was some sort of changes like that. You know, just totally different way of learning and approach to things, I think.
But I guess that's just all the adapting, isn't it, as you go through
absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
And it is normal, but again, as a child, it's hard to work through.
No. And I don't think I, you know, struggled more than anyone else would to adapt, and you know, in many ways it's probably made me more adaptable because I've you know, had to learn how to do that, I guess.
Yeah. So when you sort of like grew up, obviously into further into, you know, towards adult life and stuff, did you know what you wanted to do as a job? Did you know where you wanted to go?
I think, yes, probably since like my mid-teenage years, I was very set on what I wanted to do, and no one could really change my mind.
And is that this?
This, yeah. So my mum is a mental health nurse. My auntie is a mental health nurse. My grandparents were mental health nurses.
Wow.
I think my nan...
So you had pressure to keep it going?
Yeah. No, to be fair, my parents were very good at sort of... In fact, my mum didn't want me to become a nurse, and my dad's sort of a chartered accountant, and he would do anything to put us off that, basically. Yeah. But I think the interest in mental health was there. So my mum tried to steer me away from nursing, but they were very much like fostering, you know, my interests as well. But my dad and I had a big argument because he wanted me to do English at university, and I was, you know, like I say, I'm very strong-minded. You know, I didn't want to do it, so that wasn't happening. But yeah, I think my nan was like one of the first community mental health nurses in England.
Wow.
And
still alive?
No, unfortunately not. Both my grandparents on that side, so both mental health nurses, passed away when I was on my doctorate. So they died really? Within about 8 weeks of one another. So that was tough. But
did that affect you? Because obviously,
yeah, I'd say so. I remember the day before my interview for the doctorate. You know, I was extremely nervous about it, and then the night before that, my mum and dad, I could see them like basically having a battle between them as to what the right thing to do was, but they basically told me that my nan was really unwell, and that that wasn't when she died, but at the time they didn't think she was going to make it, and they weren't sure whether to tell me because they knew I had something else to focus on. But they did, and I made the decision to, instead of spending the day preparing for my interview, I went and spent the day with her, because, you know, that was what's more important to me. There's just nothing, and we were such a close family, and it was amazing because she had quite significant dementia, but I was talking to her about my interview, and she's even amongst the kind of the level of dementia she had, she was still kind of making a couple of comments about how she knew I would get there, and she knew I'd be really good at it. And that was so lovely. So
especially for you to remember that now.
Exactly. And it just put everything in perspective for me. And, you know, it enabled me to just remember, you know, this is what I want to do, and I'm really determined that I'll get there. But at the end of the day, like, it's not the most important thing in my life. And, you know, these things will come and go, but, you know, there are things that are bigger than that, and that was bigger than that. And I think that took the pressure off me, because then I got on to the doctorate the first time, which is quite, you know, not everyone does that. And maybe if things had been different, I wouldn't have, because I'd have been putting so much pressure on, and I'd be over preparing, and maybe it wouldn't be natural.
So maybe it's a bit of a blessing in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't regret it for a second, because even had the outcome been different and I hadn't got on, it would have still been the right decision for me.
Of course.
You know?
I get that. Yeah. So then does your mum still do anything in that area now? Yeah,
she does. So she's very recently, a lot of people do this in the NHS, they retire and return. So she's kind of just done that in the last couple of years.
Is that so you get loads of presents?
Basically, yeah. And she gets
all the
2 days
presents,
a week.
And like, oh, we'll miss you. And they buy loads of things.
Oh, I'm back again. And her week ends on a Tuesday, so she's got great work-life balance. But yeah, she works locally. She, for many years, she was a senior matron in mental health. So she basically oversaw all of the adult mental health wards in Leicester. So
matron's quite high, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it go sister matron?
I think depending on where you are, they use different terms.
My mum was a sister.
Yeah, I think now that is what they do. They have ward sister and then they have matron. But at the time they had matron and senior matron, and they've changed it slightly. But I think you're right. And she is a big part of why I've done what I've done, because, you know, growing up I've seen you know, just the way that she kind of carries herself, and you know, I guess when you work in a job like that, it doesn't just stop outside of work, and you know, it's really about who you are as a person. And she is always that person that everyone comes to, and if anyone has a problem, she will drop anything and be there. But when I first started working in the NHS and trying to get some experience way before I started my training, obviously our surnames, you know, people put 2 and 2 together and realised that we were related. And it was it was amazing, really, because she's so respected and well known, and just to hear how much of an impact she'd made and how many people know her name, that was really lovely. I mean, sometimes it was a bit frustrating because I'd be introduced in a meeting as Liz Compton's daughter. I'm like, hang on a second, I'm my own person. But it was really nice to sort of see what an impact she was making. And even growing up as kids, we'd be in the supermarket and like an old patient of hers would come up to her, and that was just our life. Like, we would be very used to people coming up to us in in town or whatever, and just telling her how well they're doing and things.
Yeah.
Which is just,
isn't that funny? Because there's quite a stigma, isn't there, about like, and I get it, it's right for the certain reasons, but like, people shouldn't talk about that outside, and people need to be more protected.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And I get it, because there is obviously cases in mental health where you don't want to be giving your number out, or you don't want to be, do you know what I mean, stopping and speaking because they might hurt it. Do you know what I mean? If you bumped into someone that had real bad mental health issues that you're working with, and you bumped into them in town, they told you the whole story while you're with your family.
Of course,
Obviously, that's not fair. But I guess that's nice what you're saying there, isn't it? Because it's like, it's part of just the whole well-being, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
How you getting on,
exactly. And we're all human. Like, we all live our lives, and there's going to be overlap. You're going to see people in the street, and that's part of it, isn't it?
I always just remember, it just reminds me randomly, whenever I used to go around town, like obviously drunk at night, when I first started personal training, people used to come up to me and telling me that they're starting with me on Monday.
Oh, really?
The amount of people that used to like stop you and go, "Oh yeah," drunk talk. Been thinking about signing up with you. Blah, blah, blah.
I'm gonna do it.
And it's like, all right, mate. After a bit, it was like, all right, okay, it's a bit boring now.
I'm just trying to enjoy myself.
I mean, let's wait till Monday if you do.
If you turn up,
but you won't.
Yeah.
So, did your mum play a big part in you going into that sector?
Definitely.
Like, because you've seen all that, sort of like what impact she made.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think from a very young age, which I'm, really grateful for, mental health difficulties were very much like normalized. A lot of people kind of have, I guess, really inaccurate perceptions, and they think it's really scary, and they're like, "Oh, mental hospital," like,
mental, isn't it?
Yeah, and
like,
people,
when you think like
exactly.
That, it's like,
But I remember when I was about 11, maybe I'm going to say about 11. It was when we were in Australia. My mum had accidentally come home with her keys one day, and basically, to cut a long story short, she had to return them, and I was with her. So I ended up going onto a psychiatric ward then, and I remember being scared because of everything that people tell you, and I was like, I don't know what to expect, But having that experience at such a young age, I was like, hang on, like, that's not, it's not like a prison. It's not what people are, saying it's like. These are like normal, so to speak, people that are just, they're going through it, and I think having that exposure at such a young age, I think more than anything, I became just very interested in people and why they are the way they are and why they struggle in the way that they do, rather than thinking, oh, that's scary. It was just it was an interest for me. So yeah, I think she was been very influential in that sense.
Isn't it crazy what you're saying there? Because it's all obviously what people think happens and what you think behind it. It's like I think it's not even there now, is it? Is it the towers in Leicester?
Yeah, it's not.
Do you know what I mean? You think of that. I've never been in there.
Yeah.
But when you think like, you think, wow,
the
people in there are just crazy.
Yeah.
And that's harsh to say, but it's just what
that's
you think.
That's what people
right?
think. Yeah.
But then actually, I've never been there to know what it is like. You may have, or you may know something like that. In fact, I'm sure you would have had to do stuff like that.
So it's been closed for quite a while, but my mum used to work there.
Right. I'm sure you've been in that situation somewhere as part of your.
Yeah, I've worked in hospitals. Yeah, in mental health hospitals.
But it's a little bit like because my mum had a brain aneurysm. It's actually 10 years ago now. Wow. Do you know what as well? I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast before. Random story, and the reason that I always remember, right? So it's hard. It's the gym's 10th birthday a couple of days ago.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah. One night specifically, the lad who had cleaned the floor, so we used to have rubber flooring all the way across the gym, but it was like a shiny rubber.
Okay.
And if you wet it too much, because it was cold, it did not dry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This one night, he mopped the floor too much, and he'd literally poured the bucket on, probably like you would if it was a good floor that would soak back up, but it wasn't. And it wasn't soaking up. We had the doors open. I was trying to blow the fans. Anyway, I had three classes that we had come in 6, 7, and 8. No. Probably like 45 people coming in over the period of time. So we had to cancel the whole thing. No. Now, normally my phone was in here in the office before it was a podcast room though. whilst I was coaching. But this, obviously, because this one day I didn't coach, that's when I then got the phone call saying, I'm all an aneurysm.
Oh my God.
So I always think that I'm a big believer in things like that. And I always think that's why the floor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So then now
yeah.
I always look back on that day and I always know exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
That why it happened. To me, that's why it happened.
Yeah. No.
Do you know what I mean?
No. I get that. And I always think that, like, if one little thing was different,
it's never happened again.
Then yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It never happened before.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I remember, because then when we went to go and see her afterwards and stuff, obviously going on to this ward, I didn't really care about the ward. I just wanted to go and see my mum. But then there's people on there that have got all sorts of brain damage.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? It's crazy because then there was genuinely a woman that come up to us and scared us because she was just talking like crazy.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was 10 years ago. I wasn't that much younger, but still, I was like, never seen that sort of thing before. Yeah. And obviously, you're caring about that, but that it's just funny, isn't it? Because you get all these different thoughts of how it looks and how it is and everything. But actually, like you just said there, I think a good way of saying it, actually, it's just like a cloud, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, often.
Yeah.
It may not be sometimes.
Yeah. No, not always. Yeah.
But I think, but it is interesting. I think it's something that I guess you get a lot of kick from it because you see the progression in people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think being able to make a meaningful difference is, I don't know, it's just the main driver for doing the job, really. It's what, I don't know, if someone gives me some sort of feedback about how they've found the experience, and, people do say to me sometimes, like, this has been life-changing. Someone said that to me the other day about their partner, and I was just so touched by it. And it's just the biggest reminder of why I do what I do.
Yeah. No, I agree.
There's nothing more rewarding than that.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because, like, certain jobs like that, and it's like what I'm doing with Line My Next now. We're developing people in whatever way, shape or form.
Absolutely.
And I love that because it's whatever you deem to be development, let's do it.
Yeah.
Whether it's set a business up, whether it's working on your mental health, whether it's planning stuff. Like one of the lads the other day, and I know it's so out of his comfort zone to say this, and that's why I was really happy that he told me, but he was saying how he's planned his year now with his wife and they're going on more holidays.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a simple shit sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But actually, he would never have done that before.
Yeah.
She now not loves him more, but you know what I mean? She now loves the fact that he's done that. And it's,
they're happy.
you know what I'm saying? And sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of it, helping someone build a business that they've never built before, and then all of a sudden making money doing something that they're passionate about. It really can be any development, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's what I think is such rewarding, isn't it, for that type of job, like what you do, and
yeah.
because you're just seeing progression.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're doing as well, if one thing isn't going so well, then it's like, say fitness was someone's goal, but actually there's something else bigger going on.
Yeah.
It's so much better to sort of look at the bigger picture and think,
100%.
wider than just their sort of fitness goals, because actually you need to get the other stuff like going well in order for them to get the best from like their fitness journey, for
100%.
example. It's so much wider than just one thing, isn't it? Like you've got to look at people at a much broader level, I think.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Without going too deep into this stuff, but it just makes me think about this. Have you seen the 5 flames? No. So the 5 flames of life, that is basically what you said there.
Yeah.
So say like you might come to me and say you want to build a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're not working on your fitness and health, and you're not working on, let's say, your family, your balance of your family. Well, if these are suffering, you're probably not going to do that anyway.
Exactly.
Once then you fix those, and that's what the 5 flames are for. So what we do is we analyze them all and go, which are the weaker ones? Because although you want to build a business, don't expect yourself to build a business if you're eating 1 meal a day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, completely agree.
And it's not saying that you have to be elite and eat perfect and train perfect, but the point is, don't neglect any of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's really, I think that's why I set it the way it is. But that's really powerful of something that we do. Yeah,
and something that people probably wouldn't always think about because they're so focused on that thing. Yeah, and then they're probably neglecting those other things because they're so focused on the thing. Yeah. I
always say that. It's like, obviously years ago when I used to work on fat loss, a lot of people will come to me and I'll be like, what's your goal? And they'll physically do this. They'll grab their stomach and go, to get rid of this.
Really?
Yeah. And what it is they're doing that, right? And then they're so targetedly, so targeted at their stomach, nothing else is better.
Yeah.
Then when they're losing weight or when they're changing shape or when their legs are looking better or their arms are looking better or their back's losing fat, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
because they're focused
That's the
on
only
that
thing.
one. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And it's
completely
crazy,
agree.
isn't it? Because, and again, that's another way of looking at an analogy of life, isn't it? Like, things are actually improving, but because you're fixated onto this one thing,
Yeah.
it's not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, you're doing that to yourself because you're just thinking that one bad thing.
Yeah, it's the way you're thinking about things.
As opposed to the fact.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I just want to stop you again for a split second. Now, you've probably heard me talk about Line Mind X quite a lot. If you are somebody that often goes through life procrastinating and not really understanding what to do next, you have these big goals, big visions, but then you all of a sudden lose your energy and not know where to turn next. Line Mind X is here to help you plan the shit out of your next 90 days. And that is as simple as it is. We work on your next 90 days, nothing else. And that's why it is so potent and powerful. We make sure that whatever you commit to in that 90 days happens, and we really drive everything forward. We count back from the 90 days. We work out your months, weeks, your days, and even down to the things you do in the day to make sure that you are doing what you said you were going to do, and you are electrifying everything that happens throughout that period, and you're crushing your goals. So if you want to learn more about Line Mind X, jump on the freebie that's in the link below, and you will be able to learn a little bit understanding of exactly what we're about, and then you can take it to the next step if you want to. Speak to you soon. When you came back to England then, what was your sort of like, what was your education and going into, like, you know, knowing what you wanted to do for a job, coming off the back of, you know, like your mum doing mental health and that sort of sector? What sort of like happened in the stages up until you starting? What time? When did you start university?
Would have been 18.
So you were 18, yeah.
Yeah.
So in that period of time there, like, how was your life at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it was good, but obviously difficult things happened. So when I was about 14, 15, my cousin unfortunately died. He took his own life, and he was in his 20s. And obviously that's massive. That's
so you were 14.
Yeah. So he was a bit older than me. And I think I'm thinking about it now, like what sticks in my mind is basically, I remember exactly what was happening. I was watching TV with my dad in our lounge, and my mum walked into the lounge. She was in the kitchen on the phone, and she walked in and fell to the ground. And she fell to the ground because she'd just been told this news, and it literally just took, you know, it knocked her off her feet. It was like the most physical reaction to kind of a loss I think I've ever seen. And, you know, she couldn't get her words out, and it was just, it came out of nowhere. You know, it wasn't, obviously, it's a bit different when, you know, like my grandparents, we knew that something was going to happen, and it was kind of expected, as devastating as it was. But this, you know, this was obviously a very sudden thing to happen. So that is something I think I'll never forget, and I'll never forget trying to understand why. And even then, about, you know, 14, I remember some people sort of narratives being like, how selfish, like how could someone do that to how could he do that to his family, you know, like, and I felt really strongly then that people were kind of missing the point. And actually how, you know, my feelings were, how bad must things have felt
for him to have to do that.
Seemed to be the only option that he had available to him. And actually that is just devastating, because what's that saying about how he was feeling, what was going on inside his mind, for that to happen. So I think even then, I guess, you know, my mind kind of was thinking, no, actually, like, how are people getting to that point where, you know, because I don't see it as selfish. I can see how people feel that way, because of course the loss for other people is so enormous. But I think, having spoken to so many people that are suicidal, actually what I'm hearing is that they think that that's better for other people, and that that's the only option they see, and things are so, like, intolerable. But also they think that people would be better off if they weren't here. And obviously, like that's not true, and we know that's not true, but that's what they've made up in their head. And they fundamentally believe that, you know, that's not something that they're taking lightly. They have arrived at that conclusion, and they genuinely believe that to be true, and that that's their only option. And that's what they do. And to you know, I don't want to say it's brave, but it's actually, I don't think see it as selfish,
no,
you know, to do
like,
that.
come on, like,
absolutely, you know, like that's so I think even then I was very much thinking, how bad must things have felt to him that happened, and how bad must things get for people that they arrive, because that's probably one of my first, like, well, it's definitely my first kind of personal exposure to suicide, but it's probably not something I really knew much about, you know.
Yeah, so you're actually trying to understand it.
So just trying to understand it, and I think, you know, that amongst other things is probably why I you know, I feel like I'm probably a very curious person. You know, like my friends always laugh at me because I'm always asking people questions. You know, I always ask, you know, I always want to know why, and I always want to know how people are feeling about things. And people joke because obviously psychologists, they say, you always say, and how does that make you feel? But I genuinely want to know.
Yeah,
you know, I want
to
understand what's going on for someone, and you know, I just love finding out more about people. So I think that curiosity probably did. You know, that probably did impact. You know, it'd be silly to think that didn't play a part in why.
No, of course.
I'm interested.
But that's you
in
naturally as a person, is it? Let alone added on the psychology side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, that was going on.
When you went through that though, what did you think seeing your mum look and feel that way when you look up to your mum so much?
Oh, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. You know, she's the one that is strong. She's the one
that's what I'm thinking.
Is always the voice of reason. Like, she's a very optimistic person. You know, I can go to her about anything, and she is just great. You know, she's the one that she thrives under pressure. She deals with difficult situations. Like, if she sees something happening, like a car accident, like, she would be the first to be stuck in doing whatever needs to be done, no matter how awful things are. So seeing her, just as a teenager as well, just seeing her so vulnerable and so devastated, like, I'll never forget it. You know, it's just awful, absolutely awful.
That's always going to stick in your head, isn't it? Like
it really will. Yeah,
definitely. But isn't that so powerful to analyse? Because you know you're strongest of people. Yeah. Not just because she's your mum. Yeah. But she sounds like a hell of a woman.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but for you to know that she's been knocked to her knees physically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That just proves, doesn't it? Like, nobody's indestructible.
Absolutely.
And also, flip side is everybody has a shit time.
Definitely.
Which is huge to realise, isn't it? Because so many people, I'm sure you get this, but I get it all the time where people think I'm relentless and I'm always positive and I'm always strong and I'm always supportive and blah 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 blah. It's like I have this thing, and I actually said this on a podcast the other day, but I have this thing about, obviously I'm sure you've seen my lion.
Yes,
but I have this thing about I'm a lion and I'm a pussycat. You know, because I am a pussycat sometimes. I can't always be a lion.
Of course, absolutely.
It's a bit controversial because a pussycat's a baby tiger, isn't it?
It works. I know,
but
what
it
you
works.
mean.
You know what I'm saying? But you know, and that's that thing, isn't it? Where it's like, it's just showing that we have those weaks and strengths, and then you know, we're all normal and we're all human.
Definitely, yeah. And I think some of us, and I would say myself included, like, do a very good job of appearing okay even when you're not. And I think sometimes, you know, if I tell people something that's happened to me or something I've gone through, they're surprised by it because you know, I think I'm very good at putting on, you know, that kind of brave face and just getting on. But actually, I think even people that appear really positive, you know, they go through their struggles. And I was speaking to someone recently who a big part of their job is to sort of, and maybe you relate to that, like, you know, is to kind of be very positive and to kind of bring people up and really inspire them. And actually, when you're not feeling that, like, that's really difficult.
Yeah, of course it is.
Because you know, I spoke to someone who's like a radio presenter, and that kind of job, like, you always need to be like peppy and on it. And what about if you've just had a terrible morning before you got to work? Like, because the way that you speak, like, everything is in your voice, you know.
Yeah, of course. And just really analysing that as well. There's not another radio presenter that's sitting in the office to take over, is there?
No, exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Course,
like, it's like,
it's all on you.
Speak now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Just keep playing those songs.
Yeah. Where have they gone?
Make sure they're good songs and not something that's make me sad.
But you could even in the break of a song, you could have you could have had an argument with your partner, for example. You could have had a text from them, and then in 30 seconds, you're back on it. Yeah.
It's funny, that, isn't it? I think we've overanalyzed that, but it's interesting. but I think that's also like, because I'm sure you will agree, like, there's certain things in life that you're able to just put a brave face on for, but
Yeah.
then there's certain things that you're just not.
Yeah,
And as well, to make this into a really deep way of looking at it, it also depends how full you are.
Definitely, yeah.
Because as we know, sometimes it could be the smallest,
Yeah.
shittest little thing,
Yeah.
but it's just tipped you over the edge.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I talk to people about that a lot. Like, you know, your cup is very rarely empty. And, you know, and I think I often obviously talk about it in the context of things like ADHD, but, you know, you might not understand why the tiniest thing is the thing that has felt like your whole world is crashing down. And it's like, how has that just like floored me in the way that it has? But it's because your cup was like just on the brink of being full because of all the other stuff. And you didn't know it.
You can't see mine, and I can't even see my own sometimes.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. So it doesn't have to be a big thing that is the thing that knocks you off your feet, you know. Yeah, I completely agree.
So obviously the way we met was ADHD.
Yeah.
It was, well, that's how we met. I went for diagnosis, and I try not to talk about too much about me, but people ask about me.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is a good time to probably talk about my experience, what I went through, and then obviously see what you think as well. But I don't know, when I first met you, I guess you can disclose this now. Did you know straight away I was ADHD? Because obviously you said I was very extreme by the time we got to the end point.
Yeah, I guess the way I always describe it is there are some people that are, you know, walk into a room or whatever, sometimes it's on video, and very quickly I've got an idea in my head about how it's going to go, and that could change. You know, I'm very open to being humbled by what my kind of initial thoughts, but I often have an idea for some people, and others it takes longer. And yes, I would say when I met you for the first time, in fact, even before I met you, when we spoke on the phone to get the assessment, you couldn't get it quicker. And we had to work out how we were going to see you.
Isn't that insane? I can't remember that, but I know exactly what would have happened. I can't actually remember it.
I think you had an idea in your mind that this is something you wanted to look into,
I wanted it now.
And then you wanted it yesterday.
Yeah, of course. No, but that is the story of me, right? And isn't that insane, right? So if you go through the NHS, I'm not slagging them off, but it's just fact. You go through NHS, you're not getting seen for a very long time, yeah? If you've got ADHD, you've probably, before you've been seen 9 months later, probably fucked your life up 5 times.
And you've been thinking about it before you've even got to the point of asking to be referred. You know,
so that is quite insane to think that that's actually... I know they can't just click the fingers and they just get it sorted.
I know,
but the irony of that is crazy.
Yeah.
So that's why, obviously, I paid a lot of money to do it, you know, privately, but then I also paid a lot of money to get medicated. Yeah. You know, and when you add that up, it's a hell of a lot of money, isn't it?
Absolutely,
like, overall.
Yeah, and it's not accessible for everyone.
No.
And the way I always talk to people about it, because by the times, you know, because I work in the NHS as well.
Yeah, I remember you said.
By the time someone, I guess even at the point that someone's been referred to even look into this, they've not arrived at that decision like willy-nilly. They've probably got there because things are going wrong, and life
and they've researched the hell out of it,
and they've done all their research. They're struggling at work, or they're struggling in their relationship, or life just feels so hard, and they've suddenly realized that maybe this is why. And then eventually, probably after putting it off for quite a while, they decide, okay, maybe I should ask about getting this looked into properly. And then they get stuck on a really long waiting list. So it's all the years that they're waiting on the NHS, for example, but it's also all the time that's spent before that struggling, you know, because they don't just one day think, oh, I wonder if I might have ADHD, maybe I should get that assessed.
Yeah,
things are going
it's not enough, is it?
No, like things are going wrong, or things are really hard, or other people are saying, like, come on, like this, we need to work out what's going on here. Yeah. So it's people are already kind of there, not necessarily always at breaking point, but things are already difficult.
Enough
I
triggers.
think is the way to say it. Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know if I told you or if I did, if you remember, but I got diagnosed with bipolar.
Yes.
Before ADHD.
Yeah.
And that was obviously after coming out of the army and loads of different things happening and massive highs, massive lows. Yeah. And we was actually talking about this morning, just randomly, like saying like, when you're on highs and lows, for me, my opinion is when you've not got control of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're allowing your emotions to control it rather than you control it. And I think it's just a completely random analogy I've just thought of. It's like throwing a bowling ball down an alley and it doing this, but then if you got the sides on, you're getting it, you know it's going to get, do you know what I mean? Not that you do it with the sides on, but
I mean, I do sometimes.
Kids do. I mean, I have. I'm not going to say I've not. But you know, do you know what I'm trying to, I'm just thinking that there. But if you put them guides up, you'd know it's going out that way. It's not going to drop down the side. I just think of random analogies like that. I don't know. I come out right some shit sometimes. But you know, so that when you think about that whole process and stuff, I think to know that you're ADHD or to go down that route of it, so often, especially at the moment, because so many people talk about this, aren't they? I don't know why it's become a big thing, but it has. And I think to know whether you are or not, it will change your life. Some for the good, some for the bad.
Yeah.
But for me, because I went through that whole thinking I was bipolar for so long, I let that label me in a way. No one knows it because I never told anyone, but as in like I let that label me because I was like, well, I just have extreme highs and lows. Yeah. But I wasn't in control of my life. But then when I then got diagnosed with you, it was really weird because I all of a sudden just felt shit. Yeah. And I felt really shit because I was like, how long I've not known it for, all the struggles I've had. I was reflecting on everything. I was reflecting on every conversation I'd had. Yeah. You know, and for me, I have a really, really shit memory. Okay. And that's part of an ADHD thing, isn't it? Because you've got so many thoughts all the time that you just don't remember. You just can't remember things. Yeah. But one thing I do remember are the painful moments. Yeah. And again, that's reading about it, that's an ADHD thing, isn't it? Because it's like, well, you're going to remember them because they've traumatized you, and then you overthink those things. Yeah, they're
emotionally sort of salient. They stick. Yeah.
But what I struggled with, I was just short. I would say this short because I want to ask you more questions than this. But I think some people asked me about my stuff before. I think, and I get it, and I appreciate people ask, but I always try and make these shows about for people. But I guess they are going to learn from my.
As I say, I think that's part of it.
But when I went through that, I don't know if I told you. Did I say what happened with the medication?
You told me very briefly, but I don't only. Yeah.
I can't remember when I did tell you all, but basically, on your live that time.
Oh,
I very briefly said it. Yeah. But basically, in a nutshell, right? I then went for medication, thinking it's going to change my life. Okay. Right. I started medication. You have to increase your doses, don't you? And bigger person, they're like, you definitely need 70, so we'll just get you to that point. We got to that point. I started to, my memory was coming back. Okay. And which was a real nice feeling. Yeah. And also just generally like my surroundings, I was absorbing them more. Do you know what I mean? Because I was having time to just actually be present and be here rather than thinking about the next thing. Yeah. Yeah. However, I lost the biggest issue. I lost the biggest thing that I didn't want to lose, which was the reason I didn't want to go on them in the first place, which was my like relentless drive. Okay, yeah. So and I've actually said this on a video before, but I say this to people, not to tell them how to feel or think it's going to go for them, but to tell you my experience. Of course, yeah. And I went on to medication. Ended up going to I always say this, but it was England's, wasn't it? The first. So then I had England's Strongest Man. I went there and I won the first event, which was one of my weaker events. But then every event afterwards, I may as well have gone home. Really? Okay. Yeah. I say that in a real twattish way, actually. I still came third.
But for you.
But I wasn't there. Like you were saying, weren't you? I wasn't myself. Sarah was. I was wanting to go sleep in between. I just wasn't. And, but what happened? I'm sure you'll see this. It's because I won that first event. I was content, wasn't I? I was like, I've done what I need to do now. I'm all right. I'm just. But you can't be like that in strongman. Jesus Christ.
No. Yeah. Absolutely.
No, you can't, can you? Because you have to have that drive to do more, go harder, go further. Yeah. But when that happened, but that really rocked me. Yeah. And then I realised it was the medication. And then I did another comp, and something similar happened again, and I just couldn't get myself back. They were my words. I couldn't get myself back.
Were you still on the medication then?
Yeah. So fast forward to now. I've come off them. Yeah. And I believe I am better without them. Yeah, okay. My way of looking at everything is I'm 35 years old. I've had 35 years of being me.
Yeah, of course.
You know? And it's not that I haven't tried to fine tune myself because I've done, years and thousands of pounds worth of personal development. yes, you've not ever done everything, but the point is I've done so much stuff. It's like that can't be the missing link.
Yeah.
But actually, it's just managing yourself better to know that I am okay as I am.
Yeah, and I think having a framework of why that is can help with that.
Of course.
Obviously, I'm biased, but that is often what I think. But I guess the medication is a difficult one, and it's not my area of expertise, and I'm quite quick to say this is what I know and this is what I'm not so good with, because it's not what I specialize in. But some people have the opposite. Some people find that their motivation is better, and I would say more people than not definitely more people than not have a very positive experience, but it isn't for everyone. And actually, I think being able to recognize that, and it's weighing it up, isn't it? Like, so for someone that really needs, their motivation is fine and they don't need to push themselves any more than they are, but their memory is just that has gone to pot and they just can't get on at work because of that. Then maybe the medication, in your case, could have worked if that, if you were in a different environment. But yeah, so some people find that actually their motivation is a lot better and they've got more get up and go. But obviously that's not everyone's experience. And, sometimes I think people do think it's kind of, there's one option and that's their end goal, that the reason they want to be assessed and potentially diagnosed is so they can have that, because they think that is going to change absolutely everything for them. And that's not always the case. And I think having a bit of, reality that actually not everyone has that experience, and that's not always the way forward, to kind of better manage things is probably really helpful for people to hear.
Yeah, no, it's true. But and as well, I think, like, if you're going through, if people are going through those sort of like problems that you're realizing this, that, and the other, grasping onto a pill to fix it is probably the worst thing you can do anyway. But it's like anything, isn't it? Like it's like having a headache, taking pain relief. I get it. Yeah, you do it. Why have you got a headache?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm a massive fan of that whole, like, I'm super stressed, I've not drank water. Right, well then drink water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Trying to understand why it's happening.
Yeah, because you can't just go put that in, because we'll be doing that forever.
Yeah, you want to make more, like bigger changes.
Be aware of yourself more, isn't it?
Yeah, and self-awareness is massive, I think, and that's what I say to people when they are struggling with something. I'm like, look, the very fact that you're sat here telling me what it is that you do struggle with and what you're kind of not as good at, so to speak, like you're halfway there, because you're actually recognizing what isn't going so well and what you might need to work on in order to get better with things. And not I also work with people, or have worked with people, where they don't have those that awareness of where they're kind of not doing so well or where they're struggling, and that's really hard, because until someone has that, you're quite limited to you can give them every sort of bit of information and tool in the universe, but if they're not aware of why they might need that and where they're best sort of needing to work on things, it's not going to go anywhere.
I don't know if I'm right by saying this, but I feel like it's a bit of an ADHD thing to be aware, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I guess there's people that just don't see things. But when you're ADHD, you're hyper aware of everything. Not everything.
Some things.
Yeah. And some things are dead to you, aren't they? And that's the problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't always know what you don't know.
No.
That's not.
The thing is, I would class myself as someone that's very aware of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? And I always have been like that.
Yeah.
It could be down to, I don't know, recognizing clothing that someone's wearing, and
do you know what I mean? You talking about that,
things that always stick in my head, like, it's like this one time we went to band camp. We went to petrol station and someone drove off, and I remember the number plate and told the woman the number plate, and then later on she took my number and rang me later on going, that was the right number plate. And so obviously but it's random things like that just, I don't know why, but I was just focused on this thing.
And I think that's the thing when people say, like I was saying this the other day, people say, ADHD, and it's like the name ADHD is attention deficit, and that isn't helpful, because actually it's not a lack of attention. It's sometimes struggling to direct your attention at what you want to direct. It's that attentional control. So actually you can have great attention to detail, or just be very present, but it's having full control over where that attention goes, and actually using it on what you want it to be, rather than having like 100 tabs open at once and just going between several different things. And so the name itself is confusing, because actually you can have great attention to detail,
Yeah.
but not necessarily where you need to at
Yeah.
times.
If anything, the name of it shows the weakness as opposed to the strength, doesn't it? Because obviously, as we know, you know, I've got 3 businesses, I've got, you know, 2 kids, now got a puppy, as you know. But I'm perfectly able to manage a lot of things.
Absolutely.
You know, I've got a hell of a lot of people that I manage and,
Yeah.
and coach and work with. Do you know what I mean? So actually, it's like, how the hell is somebody, you know, not got high attention on things?
Yeah.
My problem is, and what I've always suffered with is, and I had it again the other day, where I just have crashes.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm too
Yeah,
it's like the
yeah,
launch
yeah.
of LMX, like I was literally every single day waking up, just doing it,
Yeah.
waking up, doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and those days where people feel like not doing things, I feel like that just looks through that and just eats it up.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not a good place to be, but it's also quite powerful when you need it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Some people will say, "Oh, it's like a superpower," you know, and some people hate that term, and some people love it. But actually, and I know that I'm guilty of it in my world, because people come to me with their struggles, and I have to, like, when I'm doing an assessment, I have to use the diagnostic criteria, and naturally they are focused on sort of more of the impairments, so to speak. And therefore, we don't always focus as much on the strengths as maybe we'd like, or maybe we should, because actually there's loads of positives to ADHD. And I don't say that lightly, because actually people do go through a lot of struggles. And, you know, I've said before, and I'll say it again, a lot of the things that people struggle with are because they're expected to operate and function in a society where people
Like the norm
don't have
of whatever,
ADHD.
yeah.
And that's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's because they're supposed to fit into this societal sort of box of how they should be and how they should think and how they should behave. But actually, like, the creativity, the problem solving, the thinking outside the box, positive risk taking, the hyper focus when it's there, like the kind of interpersonal skills that can often come with, you know, like lighting up a room, or not, you know, being willing to sort of fill silences when you might have someone else in the room that's really anxious and doesn't know how to fill a silence and gets very nervous about that. There's so many.
I'm amazing at that.
Exactly.
But it's actually quite frustrating, because I often speak to people too much, or speak to people that I don't even know. It's like it's like an urge.
Yeah.
But obviously nowadays I'm more aware of it.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know. I don't really want to say this, but it's how it feels. It's like it takes over me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? It's if you don't. Do you know what it feels like? It's not a Tourette. It's not Tourette's, but it feels like Tourette's. It feels like I just have to say it.
Yeah.
I just have to speak.
It's like sort of impulsivity, isn't it? I think is the you can't not. And you just, your brain, you know, your mouth is almost going quicker than your brain in some ways. Like, there's probably a little bit of your brain that's like, oh, like, do you want to say that, or, you know, do you want to
of course.
right now? But your mouth's already come out with it before
you've
actually been able to check that. But I do genuinely feel that for a lot of people, like someone that is sort of socially anxious or more introverted, having someone like you in a room, where then the pressure comes off them, because they know that silences will be filled. They know that new sort of lines of conversation will come up, and then you know, they're sat there thinking, what do I say next? Is it my turn to speak? You know, or like, I don't know what to ask this person. That's not a problem for a lot of people with ADHD, because they're almost the opposite, and that is a great strength in a lot of situations. So we don't focus enough on that, and I'm definitely guilty of not. And, you know, because people come to me with what's not going so well, but there's loads of positives that I don't think people would ever want to take away, or you know, that's a big part of who they are.
Yeah, no, it is. And that, for me, again, I'm not telling people to feel like this or think this, but that's why I stopped medication, because I was unable to get that back again.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I sometimes think, should I have stuck it out? But the thing is, I was having too many bad incidents that was making me feel low.
Yeah, fair enough.
Do you know what I mean? And then that's why I was like, I'm not sticking this out.
Was it just
I don't
one
want
that
to.
you tried, or did you try different ones?
I only tried one, if I'm completely honest.
Okay,
but I'm sure, again, like, not the sure area, but it was Elvance, and that's known to be the best. And I know different versions can slightly be better for different people. But you know what? I think I was at a bit of a point where I was like, I'm fed up of, because going through that whole monitoring it, increasing it, that's quite stressful.
Yeah, it's a big process to go
through. Do you know what I mean? And then every week, like, and you know, no disrespect to, I forgot her name now.
With medication.
Yeah.
Becky. Yeah.
Was it Rebecca? Yeah, that was
Sorry,
it, Becky. Yeah. So yeah. But no disrespect to her, but you know, when you get a phone call off her going, how'd you feel this week? And I actually said to her a couple of weeks, and I was like, you need to stop asking me that.
Okay.
You know, when it's like, how do I feel? Because you just then say surface level shit.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
and I just you know, it's not her fault, but it's like, this happened yesterday. It's like, it's a bit more like a 15-minute therapy session, when actually that's not the. Do you know what I'm trying to say? That it's really quite it's really quite tough, because that's not the question. It's like, how's the medication affecting you?
I see, yeah.
But actually, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's quite a weird. So I think you have to do anything you do, you have to do it for a long period of time and then look back, don't you?
Yeah.
Whereas every single week I'm speaking to her, how you feeling this week?
Yeah.
Probably the same
really
as last
hard.
week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's hard.
But then from their perspective, because it's, you know, they're controlled drugs, like they're not.
No, of course. They could make you go crazy or
undertaking. Yeah, so they have to be really on it with, because if you're experiencing any strange side effects or you're experiencing any massive shifts in like your mood or whatever it may be, you know, they need to know at the earliest opportunity.
No, and I get
that. They're powerful. But I guess maybe for other people, if they are going through it, it is just worth. I mean, and like I've said, I'm not an expert, but there are a few different types, and there are stimulant-based ones, but there's also non-stimulant-based medications, and they all work in different ways. So, you know, there's ones that are, I suppose, like you said, like Elvan's being more kind of popular, or the research says there's
actually a shortage on them now.
There is, that's a huge issue.
Really crazy.
Yeah, people are having an absolute nightmare with that. Not, you know, if people are kind of quite reliant on something and then all of a sudden that's taken away. Really hard.
With the obviously different types as well, again, this is just my thought of it, I don't want to wait. Do you know what I mean? I don't want and that's me being, again, probably too impatient, but it's like, I'm fed up waiting. Yeah,
and you kind of have to, like you said, it's this whole titration process as well. Like you have to really go through a process to get to the ideal dose, and that can't be rushed. That takes time. So it's ironic, isn't it?
It is. It's really ironic. It's also really frustrating, because if you ask me what I'd say stick it out and stop being an idiot. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you coming to me saying, I'm, you know, I don't know, want to build a business and I'm not getting no clients on week one. It's like, oh, we're just putting the foundations in. Do you know what I mean? It's like, let's see the process out. And that's how you do anything in life.
But giving that advice to someone else is different.
But then also having ADHD and telling them to just chill out and not make a decision right now, it's really hard.
Absolutely, And you might know it, but actually, you know, your brain is a powerful thing. Like,
and that's it, isn't it? It's like it overpowers you and controls you.
But having that awareness that it does that is really powerful.
Of course
I
it
think.
is. So your family. Obviously, your mum works within, you know, obviously what she does. But then your brother, you mentioned earlier on, had ADHD.
Yeah, he does,
So does it happen where one of your parents has it, then they pass it down? Because what is the exact, or is there no exact way?
No, so there is a genetic link. So it is really common to find that it, you know, if a parent has it and like a child has it, that, you know, you can often find someone in the family that may not have a diagnosis, but actually they likely do have ADHD. Same for autism, but it's not absolute. So you can still have ADHD if neither of your parents have it. It's not kind of as.
I feel like Ginger.
Simple. Of course, and my brother is actually Ginger.
Is he?
I'm a parent's aunt. Yeah.
That's my point. Yeah,
Exactly.
my nephew's Ginger, and none of us are.
Yeah. My brother,
mad,
after all like the kind of, you know, typical sibling mick taking over the years, he was hoping that I was going to have a Ginger child, so that it could be payback. But so far, he's not Ginger. So
no, he could turn.
He could change.
It's funny because Leo, like, is very, very blonde.
Yeah.
Me and Sarah are both dark. She's Italian, and I'm just really dark. It's like, why the hell is he blonde?
Where's it come from? Yeah. Whereas. Charlie is quite blonde and blue-eyed, and Aiden is blonde and blue-eyed. So he's just like his dad.
you know he's his
dad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your brother then. So he's ADHD. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then dyspraxia.
Yeah, dyspraxia. So he was diagnosed with dyspraxia quite young, actually. I think my mum always says that they were lucky that someone at the school picked it up quite early. So that was good, because it was formally recognised.
Just explain dyspraxia. I know, but you know, for people, but I'd rather you say the real way of explaining it.
So it's actually not called dyspraxia anymore. It's now called developmental coordination disorder, like DCD. So I don't know why they've made the name longer, but they have.
Just to make it harder.
But same thing. And essentially it relates a lot to your coordination and kind of difficulties with coordination and movement and sort of fine motor skills, gross motor skills, but also there is a massive overlap with ADHD. So dyspraxia can cause issues with organisation and sort of time management and attention, and I think about 50% of people with dyspraxia would also meet the criteria for ADHD.
So they twin a lot of the time when...
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. And that's not something I realised until I started working in the ADHD world. So he wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until adulthood. And that was me realising that actually a lot of what he struggles with is above and beyond what can be explained by his dyspraxia. But I think because we had that sort of framework from a young age, it's like, oh well, he's got that, that's why he struggles, and then like a lot of the natural kind of stereotypes, like, oh, he's just a typical lazy boy, that's why he's not doing any of his work, and that's why you have to push and push and push. And for me, I was like quite academic, and my parents never had to push me to get my work done, whereas it was like pulling teeth at times with my brother, and I think he would admit that. But actually now looking back, they say, how did we not realise? Yeah,
especially with what your mum does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that makes it harder because that's her job? It's a bit like a policeman and their son. Yeah, they're probably not going to see the naughtiness there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think sometimes you're almost too close to it. And I mean, I've worked with people who they themselves didn't realise they had ADHD and that's what they do for a living, or they didn't realise their child had ADHD and again that's what they do. And I think sometimes it takes someone else stepping back a little bit to realise, but then equally I see the opposite, and I think we're always looking for it. I remember joking when I was pregnant saying, I am going to have to make a real effort to not be seeing ADHD and autism because I'm so focused on it that I might be sort of almost like hypersensitive to it. So yeah, possibly. But yeah, he was only diagnosed a couple of years ago, and it makes a lot of sense.
How old was he when he got diagnosed then?
So he'd have been about, so he's a couple of years younger than me. It would have been about 23, 24, I'd say. So completely, finished with the education system and, very much in the world of work. But, he struggled and he still does, but
what's he do for a job?
So he's got a really good job. He works he's like heads up sort of cybersecurity for a really large company. And so he's kind of got a team that he manages, but very much, in the kind of IT, cyber specifically world. So really interesting, very much well suited to him. But I think that's what I've noticed is the school system did not work for him, and that was him constantly feeling like he wasn't good enough and that he just couldn't do it. And why couldn't he do it? And, despite, maybe his motivation was lacking, but he tried. He absolutely tried, and things were just hard. And now, not only does he have that framework to understand himself, but he also works in an environment that is a lot more suited to him. He doesn't have to write things down. And with his dyspraxia as well, he's always struggled with his handwriting. Like, he can use a computer for everything. He's got all the sort of technology available to him to remember things, to keep his diary, meetings are there and they are reminded, so he knows what he's got to do. He can be very flexible with his time. He often works late into the evening, but he gets it done, but maybe just not in the typical way that someone without ADHD might get it done. And he's really good at what he does, and he's great at problem solving. He's great at thinking on his feet. Throw him into a high pressure situation and he thrives. So actually, I think a lot of what he's struggled with in school is now a massive strength for him.
So, it's mad, isn't it, when you think of those areas that he excels in, and what people because Sarah always takes piss at me whenever she can about, because I say that I work well under pressure, right? Now, there's different pressures, obviously. When I'm under extreme pressure and overwhelmed, I don't work well. Then I melt. And that's because I've been working too hard. So when those happen, she always laughs, not actually at me, but she's always like, I thought you worked well under pressure. I'm like, that's not the pressure I work well under. If outside now, I don't know, a bear was jumped on the back of a woman, I'd be there and I'd work. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Don't know where a bear would come from, but you never know. But you know what I'm trying to say? And that's that working well under pressure. And that's what you mean by him, isn't it? They're
absolutely.
They're the moments that, because otherwise that's where it becomes a bit of a flip side coin, because being overwhelmed is something that you suffer with a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
as an ADHD. So it's
definitely.
actually, it's quite weird, isn't it? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and it seems so similar, yet it's so different.
Yeah, and you can take on too much as well. I think there's a tendency
Of course
to
it
take
is.
on too much.
Yeah, you say yes to everything, and
Yeah,
you think you can just carry on.
Yeah. And because sometimes you can, and you keep going, and then you, like you say, you then crash, and then everything comes crumbling down because you've done too much, you've taken on too much, and you've just been relentless with it. But you can only do that for so long before you run out of energy in the tank.
Yeah. So with dyspraxia then?
Yeah.
Did you not know he had that for a long time, or was his symptoms not really that?
No, so the dyspraxia was picked up really young. So
right.
he was probably 5, maybe.
Right, I was going to say, because dyspraxia obviously depends on how, the broadness of it, but as in, like, dyspraxia can be something that you can really see, can't you?
Yeah, so he, I'm sure he won't mind me saying it, he's got a bit of an unusual walk. He's really struggled with sport because obviously coordination, his handwriting, and sort of like some of his motor skills, so like holding a knife and fork and things, like from a young age, was just not natural to him. So he had to, I remember he would go to these kind of groups, I suppose, where they're run by occupational therapists, where they would teach those skills that that
it's brain skills, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Yeah,
motor.
Exactly. So, and I think so he wouldn't be able to sit properly on the floor, and I think looking back, part of that is also probably related to ADHD because he couldn't sit still. So quite quickly they allowed him to sit on a chair because he would just get on a lot better in that sort of,
and they have to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they did with that side of things. But obviously they didn't know about the ADHD. But he got through. He was lucky that he was well supported, and he had a tutor, which again is he's fortunate that he did. But he'd run rings around her, and we used to laugh at that. He'd find any excuse he could to not get started with the lesson because he just didn't. It wasn't interesting, and he didn't want to do it, and he wasn't motivated. But the tutor had a really good measure of him, and she just wouldn't take any shit, basically.
Good.
Which was good. She was great. So so he's done really well for himself, but it wasn't easy. And it's interesting because I think, and my dad would probably admit this, and I have said to him before, he's not the vulnerable young child that was picked on and had a really tough time at school anymore. He is really successful. He's got a great job, he's earning loads of money, he's got a great house, he's got a lovely partner, things are going really well for him. He's got great friends. He is not the vulnerable child he once was. He doesn't feel vulnerable or different, or that he needs kind of being wrapped in bubble wrap. So stop treating him that way. He's an adult, and he's doing amazingly well for himself. So like treat him for what he's like now rather than the little boy he once was. But I think that's really hard for them to let go of that 100%. Because they're so protective, obviously, they're parents. So
but as well, often that's the problem, isn't it? Definitely. They wouldn't ever try and do it to be a problem.
No, of course.
But that can hold things back.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's like my mum, like, she only wants the best for everybody around her, but she often does too much, which doesn't teach them to do it themselves.
She's end up doing it for them.
And I noticed this. I'm sure you've had similar things anyway, but like, how old's your lad now, actually?
He's 9 months.
Walking? No?
No. Well, he's starting to take steps, but not properly.
Well, what I was going to say is, when a baby starts walking, and you're like, oh, don't hit the table, oh, don't do this, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
Of course you want to protect them,
and
you don't want them to smash their head on the table. But I also am a big believer of let them fall over.
That's how they learn, Do
you know what I mean? But my mum, like, so she, with both of my kids, will walk when they're walking past the table, cover the table. Do you know what I mean? And as much as I know what you're doing, I don't like that because that's not teaching them.
Learning,
do you know what I mean? And so I'm always like, Mom, get your hands away.
Let them learn. And I see that a lot when I assess adults, because parents and schools to an extent put so much structure and support in place, and they do a lot for them often. And then all of a sudden they go to uni or they start working, and they're needing to be a lot more independent.
It's a shock.
The focus is really on them, and all of a sudden all of those sort of like things that were in place, those strategies are just sort of taken out from under them, and then like, hang on a second, now that I'm having to do this for myself, like I'm not coping. And they're like, why now? And it's often because that structure and all those strategies and everyone doing things to help has just suddenly been sort of pull back.
But it's also hard for them to see as well, isn't it? Because then they're not necessarily going to see that change has made that issue.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you might not realize, because if that's all what you've always done, you don't know that taking that away is going to have the impact it does until it's done and they've moved halfway across the country to fend for themselves at 18 at uni, and they've suddenly got to get themselves to lectures and get their coursework in on time, and the university aren't going to be chasing you to make sure you do your homework or whatever, like they do at school, or like your parents know what you're up to an extent, whereas at uni it's all on you. So many people I've assessed, like, things have really kind of started to fall apart when they've started uni or they've sort of started work where they have to turn up every day at the same time, and they have deadlines, and they have to get stuff done.
And especially when it's in that moment, you don't know how to just quickly change or quickly adapt, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not as easy as just saying, "Oh, okay, well, I'll just arrive on time." We know it's not. It's not a deliberate choice to be late. It's way beyond.
There's so many things, isn't there? Right, in ADHD that are hilarious and frustrating all at the same time. Now I don't know if you said this or if I read this or something. I wouldn't have read it. I don't know why I'm lying. Might have seen it. I feel like I've seen it on something. But so one of the ones that resonated to me, because when I found out I was ADHD, and then you reflect back and you think about things. One of the biggest things that me and Sarah struggled with a lot, right? We lost our relationship for quite a bit of time. I become more obsessed with things, right, without realizing, because it was more of a highlighted thing. And I'm sure you see that. You hear
absolutely.
That.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember when we left anyway, obviously, like, I don't mind sharing, I was in tears. Sarah was in tears. I think most people probably are. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's that, like, overwhelmed, but I don't know, it's a weird feeling. It's like, I'm glad I know.
Yeah.
But fuck me, I didn't want to know.
Yeah, it's kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
You feel validated possibly more than you ever have, but equally,
but also judged.
Yeah, and you grieve what I think people don't realise this, that you often, like, you look back and you think, wow, like, that me as a 10-year-old kid who was really struggling, like, if only I'd have known, I could have been nicer to myself, and other people could have been more understanding. Like, it's this. Yeah, I'd say more people cry than don't.
No, of course, but it's because you're reflecting on all your fails. Obviously, you know this anyway, and you don't do it purposely to make you feel shit. But we spoke 2 hours or 3 hours.
Yeah,
what was it?
Long.
3 hours.
Yeah, 2 to 3. Yeah.
About my shit life.
Yeah. Talking about all the things that you find difficult.
Do you know what I mean? It's like so. Yeah. The emotions that are involved is insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to know it is also so powerful and important. But I think, like, when you look at all these different things and you go back in your life and everything, it's a fail. And it's because at no point did you know why or anyone was able to guide you and assess you and understand.
Absolutely,
Isn't it? So you're just constantly just tripping up and you're unable. It's like, I'm full of analogies, as you know. It's like being blind, isn't it? And just walking around and then falling over something, go, well, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not taking the piss out of a blind person. But as in, like, trying to look at, I'll fall over something. Oh, I'll get back up and I'll carry on. I'll fall over something else. It's like,
happening again.
It's like, probably get a stick.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Do you feel like, obviously, like you said, it was actually really hard at first when you found out, but now, like, I guess, how do you feel knowing it?
Yeah, it is a good question, like, because right now I'm in the best place I've ever been, which obviously is really, really positive. And it's a huge part of why I set LMX up. Yeah. Because, the 5 flames I mentioned earlier on, it's all part of that, right? Yeah. My family went to shit. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have much fun. Well, I didn't. I do now. Yeah, because I'm relentless on what I do, so then I don't spend time to have downtime. Yeah. My family went to shit because, I just went into a little bit of a self-destruct mode. Okay. Do you know what I mean? I knew I was doing it. I didn't want to do it, but I was just going through it. I was pretending I was okay, and I wasn't. Yeah. Mine and Sarah's relationship went really shit. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then I went through a really aggressive stage of trying to search for more dopamine, which is ridiculous because I knew that was the problem. But I don't know. In fact, I don't know if you could shed some light on that, as in why that happens. But why? Well, yeah. Why would that happen when I've just found that out? Surely you're more aware of it. But I went for it. I was really aggressively then searching for dopamine.
Yeah, I guess. Well, we know obviously dopamine is really highly linked to ADHD, and maybe, I don't know, maybe learning about that in and of itself, was that you realize what it is that does make you tick in a way. Do you know what I mean? If you now know, oh wait, that's what I've been doing my whole life. It's that specific thing. You know, when I'm driving really fast, or I'm, you know, always starting new things, the reason I've always needed to do that is because of that. You know, it's almost like that's what it is that's been, you know, exciting me and driving me and motivating me for so long. And maybe just the whole, you know, okay, finally I understand myself, this is why I do it, like take a breath, kind of, I can kind of be kinder to myself a bit now. But you kind of, with that,
still have ways of,
and then like you kind of let your guard down a little bit and keep going with the things that, you know, because actually
stimulating
that's, you know, whether you have a diagnosis or not, you're still going to be chasing the dopamine, you know, and you might be more aware of it and more able to kind of put things in place, but knowing you have ADHD doesn't stop your brain from craving more dopamine.
And I never expect it to fix it straight away, but it's just interesting to know why that happens, isn't it? I mean, obviously when I spoke to Rebecca, I think it is,
about medication. She was, because when I was going through the increase in the stage, what do you call it? Titration.
That's it. Titration.
Titration.
But when you're going through that stage, she said you'll find that you're quite up and down. And that was when I was actually getting really searching. Do you know what I mean? And I was doing some stupid things that nearly resulted in our relationship ending. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, And I really, and we lost a baby, I think, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, that was happening. There was a lot of things happening all in one. And it was fucking hard.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think obviously, as you know, like, people with ADHD struggle with emotions, don't they?
Massively.
Why is that, out of interest? Because I've struggled all my life. You know, one of my biggest things, and I'm saying this out, you know, loud in front of everyone, but it's rejection.
Yes, that's huge in ADHD.
Why is that a thing though? Because I've always struggled with it and never realised that's what it was. Because
emotional regulation or emotional dysregulation is massive in ADHD, and it's in part the part of your brain that's massively affected by ADHD is the front, so your executive functions and your sort of frontal lobes, and your emotional control, emotional regulation is highly linked to that. So I was talking to someone about this recently. I'm surprised it's not in the diagnostic criteria, because I'm yet to probably meet anyone with ADHD that doesn't find that that's a problem for them. And so kind of regulating your emotions is just, because it relates to your executive functioning, which is what's lacking. It's just really hard. So you go from 0 to 100, and that's why people often are misdiagnosed with things like bipolar, because, you know, they're saying my moods are all over the place. I'm going from one extreme to the other, often without any warning. But actually in ADHD, you might experience that 10 times in a day, whereas in bipolar, you might have it for 3 months and then a low. Do you see what I mean? It's quite different. But because it relates to your executive functioning, your control over your emotions is linked to the part of the brain that is impacted by ADHD, basically. You
know, obviously it's not, you can't click your fingers and fix it, but I will happily say now I'm in a place where I'm more fully aware of, like, you know, what does go on, so actually I'm able to just ignore it more. Do you know what I mean? Because like what you're saying there, and it sounds like a joke, but it's so true. It could be 10 times a day that something like that happens, and it takes you off your feet.
Absolutely.
You know, and again, because I get so obsessed with things, you know, I may say, sometimes I say things wrong to people, like, you know, it just roll off my tongue.
Of course.
But if I don't get a chance to say sorry to you or correct myself, then that's it. Then it will live with me all day, and it might even come over to the next day. And sometimes it's hard to release that, isn't it?
Hugely.
But that's why now, I mean, one of the things I do every single day, I've got this part of my daily journal that I do, is I positively impact someone every day.
Amazing,
So yesterday's, for example, was message mom and tell her I love her. Random little tiny thing, but I feel great for doing it. She messaged me back saying, you know, I don't know, she feels good for hearing it. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of them random things. The other day was saying sorry to someone that do you know what I'm trying to say? But they're them things where I often have those, and that's why I put things like that in place, because we've got to manage these things, right?
Absolutely.
And it's so important and powerful to do those sorts of things, because otherwise, like you just said, it will just run away with you.
Definitely. Absolutely. And the rejection thing is huge, and I think that partly relates to the issues of emotions I've mentioned, but also, like, I've spoken to people before about this. If you imagine, like, your whole life you've had other people telling you that you just need to try harder, you know, stop being lazy, whatever it may be. You've had that message from other people, you know, your school reports, whatever they're saying, like you're constantly disrupting other people, you just need to get on with your work. And then you've got your own voice saying, why can't I just get on with this? Like, why am I so shit? You know, why am I so lazy? Whatever it may be. And then you've got society kind of saying, well, at this point, you should be at this level. Yeah, you should have achieved this. You should have got this many qualifications, whatever it may be. Like if you're hearing those messages your whole life, either you know you've got ADHD and that's why, or you don't know you have ADHD, so you don't even know why these things are so hard. Like that is going to impact on your kind. You are going to be.
There's only so much resilience you have.
So you've got that vulnerability to rejection. So then someone just, even if they aren't actually rejecting you, if you perceive a rejection or a criticism,
it's just as bad.
Yeah, and it's massive because it's feeding into what you've been hearing or been telling yourself your entire life. So it hits a nerve like nothing else. Something
I'm going to say, right? I've never ever said this to anybody, and this is I've said it to Sarah, obviously, but. And me and Sarah had counselling after we lost the baby and stuff, right? Yeah. And it actually wasn't because of that, it was because of how I was being and how she was being. We weren't quite marrying up.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
She won't mind me saying this, otherwise I wouldn't say it. But going off the rejection fact, so after, obviously after we lost the baby, Sarah wouldn't have wanted sex.
Of course.
Yeah, because it's a natural thing. It's not a nice thing. I was being rejected for having sex. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know that's quite a big thing to admit on here, but it's I'm saying it because it's real, right?
Yeah,
and but then me not understanding how to handle rejection. Yeah, that's why our relationship went really, really bad.
You perceived it as a personal rejection when actually it wasn't anything about you.
But I hate it now that I didn't see it. But you know, at the time I couldn't understand it,
didn't know.
And also I was on medication.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? So there was all these things that was in the mix that was making it such a. I don't know, such a hard, it makes me feel tight-chested even thinking about it now, like the thought of it, but it made it such a hard thing because I was right, she was right. Yeah. But if we stood back and seen it, it was like, you just need to get on.
Clashing, yeah.
And you know, it's... Yeah. But they're them things, aren't they? Like, and I think they're some of the biggest struggles you have. Because obviously, you know, you can say, oh, someone's ADHD because they forget things all the time.
Yeah,
that's like, does it really matter?
Yeah.
It may matter. It genuinely might matter, but have you tried using alarms on your phone? Do you know what I mean? I'm not taking the piss.
Strategies for some of those things,
That's why I've got a timer. That's why I've got my. If you look at my calendar, it tells me what I'm doing every single minute of the day. Do you know what I'm saying? They're them strategies to overcome that.
Of course,
But then there's some strategies you just can't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I went to say this earlier on and I didn't finish saying it. One of the ones that resonated with me, I started by saying, I don't know if it was you or I watched it on something.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know where that went then, but I lost that. You know, one of the ones that kills me, and when I heard it, I was like, oh my fucking God, that is insane, right? The way this guy explained it was like, you're walking out the bathroom, washed your hands, dried your hands on the towel, you go to put a towel on, the towel drops on the floor. You then look at the towel going, I need to pick that up. And then you go, I'm not picking it up. And then you go, I need to pick it up. And then you go to walk out, and then you go, just pick it up.
Yeah.
And then you go to pick it up and you're like, I can't pick it up.
Yeah, paralysed.
Yeah. And then you go out the door and go, I'm not fucking picking it up, and walk out the door. Yeah. Then you get downstairs, put the kettle on, get the tea bag out and go, I need to put the fucking towel back.
Yeah, that's all you can think about.
Yeah. That, honestly, I can't tell you how much that thing, it resonates with me. It was insane. And I was like, and again, this is so random for me to even say this out loud, and I'm only saying it because if it helps someone, and then, course, you know. Yeah. But that feeling of that is so fucking bizarre. Yeah. Because just pick the fucking towel up. And if I tell you that, I'll say, stop being such an idoit and pick this. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In the moment, it's like paralysing. Yeah.
But why is that? That's like, is that no dopamine thing?
So it could be. Like it could just be. I mean, sometimes people do just feel paralysed by the simplest of tasks in ADHD. And it's, I don't know, it might. I guess it's hard to remember, but. And it's not, it's an example that someone else has used. But if you think of a time when it's happened to you, what is going through your brain at the time, do you think?
It's so hard. Do you know what? The only thing I can say is like a blockage.
Yeah.
Me and Sarah, the other day I won't be able to remember what it is now. The other day we had disagreement again. And then an hour and something later, I then come to terms and went, yeah, that was my fault. But at the time, it's like the only thing I can say is it's a blockage.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
It's like you telling me that microphone's blue. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
no. Yeah.
I can literally see it's red.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but then but so often, like with me and Sarah, like I just don't understand what she's saying, and it is logic, but I just don't understand. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's so hard to explain sometimes.
Yeah.
But as well, I'm this person. I don't want to be. Oh, it's ADHD. I don't. Do you know what I mean? If I ever said that, I'd shoot myself in the head. Like, do you know what I mean? I will never go. I'm okay to do that because of this.
Of course, yeah. You're not using it as an excuse.
No, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know no one really wants to do that, but it happens when people are so overwhelmed and they don't understand how to get themselves out of the situation that they then go, "It's because of this." You know, nothing's because of this. Let's be honest.
Yeah. There's something else.
There's always ways round things, right? But yeah. But I think there's a couple of things like that I've always struggled with, but then you just know you have to work round them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and having the understanding of that is something you struggle with enables you to then think, how do I work around it? And there are, like you say, there are things that are easier to put strategies in place for. There are things that are harder, and I think the emotional regulation side of things and the rejection side of things is harder because your kind of fight or flight mode takes over, and you're not applying logic, and like come back to it 2 hours later. Yes, like you said, the example the other day with Sarah, like you can see, okay, actually I was in the wrong there, but in the moment there's no chance of that happening because your like arousal level is too high, and you've sprung into action, and you're not able to hear reason because you can't apply that right now. But
that's again why always plug in my systems. But that's again why the 5 frame stuff's so important. You know, like weekly, me and Sarah have a sit down and chat. Do you know what I mean? It's things like that where
I think everyone
we
should
just
do that.
plan our week.
We
look at our holidays. We get excited about things that are coming up. This week I'm in Newcastle tomorrow. Like she's got to look after the kids. So she needs. I need to remind her that. Look, are you okay with that? And is that okay? And do you want me to help you doing it? You know. I mean, I'm the best partner in the world now, but they're the things, aren't they, that make us better people?
Absolutely, and just a weekly check-in with your partner, even if things are all going great.
Because we're both fucking busy. Like sometimes you could pass in the day, like kiss, bite. Sometimes they get a kiss.
Depends how you've been.
I mean, if you're walking too fast and you reach out and you don't quite connect lips, you've lost chance then.
You're done for the day.
So I could literally talk forever on this, and I'm sure you can. But let's try and leave people with something to think about themselves. Because I'd hate people to come listen to this and go, am I ADHD then? Do I need to go? What do I need to do? And all this sort of stuff. Because to throw my 2 pence in, right? And I'm not taking you out of business by saying this. It doesn't fucking matter if you're ADHD or not. That is the bottom line, right? And I'm saying that to protect people. Because quite simply, who cares? However, my point is that if you're struggling with it, I got to the point where I am actually struggling. There's something not right, if you want to put it like that. I am struggling. I want to know. Am I glad I did it? Yes. Because I'm now more aware than I've ever been. If I didn't do it, would it have mattered? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, then would I have put more strategies in place? Probably not. So then it's the unknown, isn't it?
Of course.
But what can we leave people with, like, that you could share about just your experience helping people, and if people are feeling like they're suffering from these things, what they can do?
I think you've touched on a really good point, and it's something I always ask people. It's kind of like, why? Would it change anything? And what you've kind of, if say you're wondering you have ADHD or autism, for example, because that is, that's just what I know more. If you've come to the conclusion that could explain some things for you, why are you thinking that it might be helpful to know? Because if you're just like, I just thought, maybe I could find out, then I would say, do you really need to do that?
There's no real drive behind it.
If you think, like you've just said, things are really tough and I'm being really hard on myself, or I'm going around in circles and I'm really struggling to hold down a job, or my relationship is kind of like at breaking point, and I actually think it would help me, or it'd help other people around me to understand and to know how we can kind of manage this better, then fair enough, do what you can to make it happen, to get those answers. Because as much as people like yourself have said that it's a real journey and a real process to go through, and it's not all good by any means, I'd say I'm yet to have assessed someone that's come and said that they regret going through it, if you see what I mean.
No, of course.
But I think you have to really think about why. And I think if it's just a curiosity, that's valid, but I would ask yourself, do you really need to know?
Yeah, is that enough?
But equally, for some people that is, and that they're so caught up in that curiosity that they can't think about anything else until they have those answers. And that is...
But then that's enough there, isn't
valid.
it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that everything's falling
consuming
apart.
you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd say if it's just a curiosity, and I say just a curiosity, the NHS are unlikely to take that forwards, because of course,
and rightly so, let's be honest. If people are suffering, they need the support first.
And I would say, just wider than that, something I spoke about recently, which is really, really simple, but it's something that I find helpful, and sometimes people say, I never thought of that, and I find it helpful, is when you are noticing that like you're really struggling with a certain thought, or your brain is telling you something and it's really overwhelming you, and you're beating yourself up, or you're really worried that someone is rejecting you, whatever it may be. Say the thought is, she's rejecting me right now and that's making me feel really crap. Just add in, I'm noticing that I'm thinking that she's rejecting me right now. It's really simple, and it's just adding in a few words, but what you're doing is just creating a little bit of distance between the thought that you're having and reality, because we get so tightly wedded to our thoughts that we think if we're having it, it must be true. And doing that can sometimes just be what you need to just step back and think, hang on, is this my brain doing that thing again?
Yeah.
Because I know that I do tend to take rejection, I'm really sensitive to it, and I take it
it's actually very simple, but quite effective.
Simple. But yeah, it's just about creating that bit of distance, and you can literally apply it to anything. So that's something that I think we can all do more of, whether you've got ADHD or whether you don't. I think it applies to anyone in any situation.
It's just to add to that as well, it's really funny because I get it, and that is amazing to say that, but to think to do that, it's hard, isn't it? You got to drill that in, really, because you know what, you probably even should set a reminder on your phone to remind you of that throughout the day or something like that, because to think that with an ADHD sort of thought process, it's actually quite like, because I don't need to, because I know that I'm right. Yeah.
And if you sort of pay attention, I think that's probably a good point. Like a first step is just to pay attention to the thoughts you have, and that might be hard because they're going a million miles an hour, but just start to notice on an average day what thoughts are coming into your mind, because then you can start to recognize when they're happening, and if they're not so helpful, try and add in that I'm noticing. But you actually do have to notice your thoughts in the first place, and that's not it's not something we necessarily think about. We have thousands of thoughts a day, but they go so quick. We don't necessarily pay attention until one like punches us in the gut, and that's all we can think about because we think it's the truth. So paying attention to just every day writing down like 5 thoughts that have come into your mind in the last half an hour, like just to get into the practice of actually, what is my brain often coming up with? What am I constantly
I'd have to voice note mine, because I'm not shitting you. I would literally, by the time I've got my book out, what was that again?
Exactly,
I hate that. That is one of the things that grates on me.
But writing on your phone, like that's what we've got on let's be realistic, who carries a notepad around with them but you've always got your phone in your pocket, or on your way out,
talk to yourself,
anything. Don't make it harder for yourself than you need to. Use what's going to be available to you and make your life a bit easier.
No, love it. So what's next for you, and where can people sort of like see you? Like, what, obviously you work NHS and you do your private stuff. What's next for you on your private side?
So I'm very passionate about ADHD and autism, if you can't tell. And we've spoken about this before. Getting these things assessed, for one thing, is not an easy thing to do, but also when you find out that that's what's going on, getting kind of follow-up support is often just non-existent, and unless you have the money to pay for it. So what I often do is try and share little sort of bits and pieces on my social media, just to give people like this, what we've just spoken about, that I'm noticing, just a quick tip that you can apply to yourself that day, or try to. So I'm always going on about things on Instagram, on TikTok, both to help people kind of, if they've not yet been diagnosed, but also if they have, things that they can do, or things that, just to learn more about what might be going on for them. So that's something that's still going on. Obviously I'm still assessing people privately. I'm always assessing people for ADHD and autism. So that's something I'm continuing to do, and, you know, trying to just help people make sense of themselves. It's the best part of the job, and if I can keep doing that for the rest of my working life, I will be very happy.
Yeah. No, which is important that you're passionate about what you do.
Absolutely. I don't think you should do it if you're not.
No, I agree.
Know, yeah,
hence why I found myself where I am now, like all the different things you do, and then you go, this is really what you want to do.
This is me, yeah. Absolutely.
So are you happy people messaging you if we put your link below?
Yeah, of course.
Stuff,
yeah.
Obviously,
absolutely.
sometimes even just that, hey, I've been thinking this.
Yeah,
and, you know,
yeah.
like chats. Sometimes people don't dare do that, do they?
Of course, yeah. If I can help, I will. And, you know, the amount of people that come to my appointments and they're like, how are you? And I say, how are you feeling? And I'm really nervous. I get it, you know. It's scary. It's scary to put yourself out there. You're talking about the things that you struggle with. Like, let's be honest. You've not come to me because, you know, you want to talk about all things that go really well in your life. So it's hard. But I really, really try to make myself as accessible and human as possible. And I usually find that people feel way more comfortable after they've spoken to me than before we start. So you know, I don't bite, and if I can help you, I will. You know, I'm trying to help people, and if I can do anything to help, I will be there. Yeah,
no, I love it. So where can people find you? What's the best place? Instagram, what are you
TikTok,
on Instagram?
So on both, I'm at Dr. like Dr. Compton-Smith, so all one word basically. Same on TikTok. Depends what you like best, I guess.
Yeah. TikTok's nice and quick, isn't it?
Exactly.
I don't use TikTok, but I know why people do. Cause it's just
a lot of people with ADHD do for that reason.
Yeah, that's exactly. We were on about them doing, weren't we? Yeah, love it. But no, appreciate having you on. I normally give people a fist, but I'm going to give you a hand.
You could give me a hand.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on. I mean,
Thank you so much.
You know, thanks for sharing everything.
I really appreciate you having me.